All right, welcome to Enoshima House B. This was a design exercise to make a house that I've been thinking about for a long time. Even before the last design, which was Natsumi Chan's house, I had been thinking of making this house, but then it came up in discussions with my friend Natsumi that I could use her criteria as a basis for design, and so I did that first. And then in the past few months, I've had some time, and so I've tested out some ideas that have been mulling around my head, and what came out was Enoshima House B. It's not my proudest work, it's not my worst work, but it was a good design task to exercise some thoughts and see how they turned out. So this is the conceptual design package. So the concept, similar to Natsumi Chan's house, was to take time, place, and journey and put them together into an architecture that relates to time in light, place in location, and journey in experience. So for the time component, first let's talk about the design goals. The main thoughts behind this project was to have a multi-level house where these spaces are connected. So instead of spreading out horizontally into like your LDK, your living room, dining room, kitchen, and then down a hall to a bedroom or whatever, the connections would be compressed into a compact form that is quite typical in Japanese architecture, and then stretched vertically so that your your levels are sort of floating platforms above each other, yet still connected together. So I wanted multiple levels within a larger volume that feels like an atrium in a sense, that has a lightness to the structure and the architecture, a sense of movement that I'm still struggling with a bit, to be compact, and then to have a tea room, outside space, a journey of discovery through the architecture as as it reveals itself to you. So there'd be a tatami room, an engawa, and then I really wanted to focus on light and shadow as I do in all my architecture. I'm still trying to improve on how I understand light coming in to the building and dispersing through the building. Particularly, I've been thinking a lot lately about the quality of light and how it differs between Kamakura, Japan, and Vancouver, Canada, where I'm more familiar with. And so I wanted to have interesting light and interesting shadows and use those to help get a sense of movement and a sense of lightness and a sense of floating. Another big, I guess, restriction I put on myself is I was trying to make a compact form, in the sense of the typical Japanese house is quite small relative to the North American standard, and trying to push my comfort level in how small is okay. The theme didn't really work out so well in this project. It went through a lot of iterations. What I've put here is the first initial theme, which was to have a treasure box. So I wanted to have multiple boxes that intersect each other, and within it is a treasure box for things and objects. Later, I tried to look at it in terms of clouds on a mountain, but I don't know if any of them really were that successful. As I kind of said, related to before, the atmosphere has a lot to do with light and how shadows dance in the daylight. Particularly, this was a forested site, and so I thought it'd be quite interesting to see how light comes through the tree canopy in the komorebi, and that the movement of the trees and the leaves would kind of dance shadows and light into the interior. the narrative of discovery within the building, within the architecture, is that you would come in and there's three distinct views, similar to Natsumi-chan's house, but in a different order. You would come in, you would be taken through a series of progressive views to Enoshima Island, Mount Fuji, and then the ocean to the south. And as you were climbing your way up through the building, you would be exposed to these views. They would reveal themselves to you. So I did a lot of sketching to begin with. I try to start all my projects with hand sketching, and both in plan and section and just drawing out ideas. I think I could do a better job at bubble diagramming. I've never really found bubble diagramming useful, and I don't know if it's just because I already have an idea in my mind of hierarchy and sense, but I kind of skip that step, and I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but a lot of my sketching tends to be more specific to the plans and sections, and then my imagination is the 3 dimensions. So in terms of place, this is again in Enoshima, just south of Tokyo. It is my favorite place in Japan because it is right beside the ocean. You have Enoshima Island, which is a great place to visit, and you have Mount Fuji in the distance, which on a clear day is spectacular. So this is the site location. Natsumi-chan's house in the previous video is just down here, right near Enoshima, and along the Enoshima Densha Railway to Kamakura, which is kind of the famous tourist railway, and a great train ride nonetheless. From this site, kind of slightly up on the hillside, there are 3 vectors, one to Enoshima, one slightly up from west to Mount Fuji, and then to the southeast towards the sea. This is kind of where the site is. The main road's down here with the railway line, and you go up maybe 40 meters or so from sea level to be on the edge of the hillside. Kind of right here. Natsumi-chan's house in the previous video was there. Enoshima's here, and Mount Fuji is there. Right now it seems like there's an abandoned house there, and so I kind of picked this site as a potentially viable location. So there's a bit of a terrace stepping that goes along here, where you terrace up from the beach to the road, and then up to this first house, again up to the property, and then a third time up to a house that's slightly higher up. In terms of journey, again, we're looking at movement and tatamis and different materials, a change in material aspect as you go through the architecture, and how those materials kind of lead you towards the 3 views. It's again trying to be a traditional modern Japanese architecture that's quite prevalent in a post and beam wood structure with the shoji screens, the wood floors, as well as shikui plastered walls. So into the design. The basis of this design was to have 3 volumes that intersect each other as they face the axes. So the first axis is towards Enoshima, the second one to Mount Fuji, and then the third one out to the sea. And the idea was that these 3 volumes would intersect each other and create a larger contained volume inside, where different levels and different platforms could exist, and create create this space where that you can move through these volumes, rising in elevation and getting different views out to along the axes as you went through the architecture. So orientation was a big concern of mine, and then how to get those different levels into the design, and then subsequently bring in different types of lighting scenarios to get the connection to the three views, the three framed views. This is how the plan turned out. From the beginning, I kept that concept of the three rectangular volumes, and just kind of massaged the internal spaces to fit. So you would come up the path from here into the entranceway. The Genkan is here, and you could go down some steps to a lower bathing bath toilet area that also have the closets for the majority of clothes. And this is kind of a popular concept in modern Japanese homes, is that you put your main closets near the bath, which happens to be near the door. But that means that every time you go to the bathroom to shower, your clothes are right next to you, and that's also where the laundry is. So the changing of the clothes and the laundry kind of stay contained within this one area. And it's not like, so instead it's not like you have to go to your room to go get your clothes and then carry them to the bathroom, shower, and then take your laundry to the laundry room or back to your bedroom to put in the laundry hamper, and then take that to the laundry room. No, it's all kind of contained in one area. And so I've been really taking in that design concept and trying to work with it, and I'm finding it works quite well in these designs. So from the Genkan, from the entranceway, you go up some steps, and then you're into the LDK. So you have the kitchen, the dining area, and then a small living room with a raised platform that is the tatami room. And so that, with some shoulder screens, can be opened up to be part of the LDK or closed off to be a more peaceful, mindful place. The living room is oriented to face predominantly towards Enoshima, while the tatami room is facing directly towards Mount Fuji. But they have these corner openings, so that while it's facing one view, it's also opening up around the corner to like the gardens to the north, or to the north and the south of the house. So one is like the Engawa here and the yard, and then from the tatami room, it's to like the rock garden up on the hillside. If you were to go up some steps, you would go into the next level up, which is the studio. And this is kind of the desk space office area that is higher up to look down onto the dining room. So there's still a visual connection, but it's expanding that LDK volume out along a diagonal is kind of the intention, to expand the sense of space and feel like the building is larger than it actually is. So you have room for 2 desks and some shelves with books, and this was the original treasure box sense of like that's where you would display your souvenirs from your trips or whatnot, or your things you want to put on display. There's another toilet up here, and then there's 2 bedrooms. A master bedroom with a bit of a deck that looks out towards in the opposite direction of Mount Fuji, which ends up being looking out towards the beach and then the ocean, and then another bedroom that has some steps up in it, and then just a small bed and a desk. Originally, this third volume was supposed to have the high view out to the water. That was the concept, but I couldn't get it into a tower shape, a high enough tower that at the top would have a lookout. I tried really hard, and just in this case, it wasn't really working out for me. And that's kind of where I struggled with this concept, is trying to get yet another level which had a lookout to the water. So this is kind of a rendering of it in section, where you have the entranceway, some steps up, and you see the living room, dining room, and then a step up to the tatami room, the stairs up to the study, and then more stairs up to the landing, and then up to the bedroom. The material palette is very typical of Japanese architecture, where we have wood, we have concrete at the base in terms of stone, internal plaster walls, a connection to the ocean, and then shoji screens. These are kind of some graphics. I tried using the AI online to render out this project at first, and this is kind of what it gave me, which in some senses does convey the finished product, the finished design. Site plan, and then floor plan. This floor plan I thought kind of turned out actually quite nice as a graphic. In the rendering engine, this is kind of the pathway from the parking area. So you'd park and you'd walk up this hill, and then the building you couldn't really see from the roadway, and then so it would kind of come to you as you go around this corner, and you can see like the idea of floating volumes. So you have the darker wood for the main volume grounded in the earth, and then a floating canopy above which there are these other volumes that are kind of suspended up there. As you come around the side, there's some slats here that give a bit of an interesting lighting effect near the doorway, and also make it less obvious that there's a path to come around to the yard, the front, I guess kind of south side yard, the engawa, and the open sliding doors, I guess you'd call them, for the living room. Originally, I went through quite a few iterations for the facade, and it didn't really turn out the way I wanted. Originally, I was trying to have multiple different facade treatments of different wood facades, because and it would be a library of the different facade techniques you could do in Japanese architecture. But it became a bit too busy, and so I tried to simplify it down and refine it down to a plastered finish, which is in Canada we have stucco. I guess in America you have stucco too, but this is it's kind of a smoother finish than this, and I wanted to try and get some texture in it still, and some patina, but the rendering didn't really come out in the rendering engine. But the idea was it would be like this kind of off-white Japanese plaster with a bit of texture and patina to it. I probably also should have put like silver aluminum frames on the windows. Kind of here's the way the living room spills out into the engawa, and then into the yard, and then to the other side you have the tatami room that opens up into the back garden. In this bird's eye view, you can see how there's this volume that shoots out towards Enoshima, and then this higher up volume that goes towards Mount Fuji, and then there's two other volumes. This is the bedroom that's actually aligned with the volume below. So in plan, you still get that that directional axes. But I found that I felt like I didn't really need the double height in above the living room as well. So I was trying to find that compactness. This is the view from inside near the kitchen. Kitchen, living, dining, and then tatami room on the side. I'm trying out a new rendering engine here as well, D5, and so starting kind of learning how it works a bit. View from the kitchen area, and here you can see those two views, one to Enoshima and one to Mount Fuji within the tatami room. And then above is this large atrium volume, double height space, with slats and these modulating fins to help control the sunlight and make sure that without the overhang on the outside that it's not overly bright inside. I'm not sure how successful they were. I think it's one of those things that really needs study with physical models. I think the rendering engines kind of can change the way the light comes into and isn't like, even with ray tracing, I don't think it really represents the light coming in accurately. But it was an interesting experiment and something I certainly learned from. The tatami room. And then from Enoshima side. And so being up on the hill, you get this you would have this fabulous view of Enoshima and Mount Fuji in the distance and be just high enough to see over the lower buildings near the water. And when you turn around, this is kind of in a way, the money shot of the project. This was the essence of the project, to having multiple levels and that sense of verticality within the house, and that part was successful. Where there's the tatami mat and this kind of sitting ledge, play ledge, and then you go up these stairs and you're at a higher level in the studio, but it's still connected visually and acoustically to the LDK, and then you have this corridor, this higher up corridor that's kind of like a bridge suspended above into the bedrooms, which are also connected back into the main space. Here's how the studio turned out. Again, I was trying to have a loft lookout above that you would climb up a ladder to a net and look out through a slit window to the ocean, and it just didn't feel right, and I ended up with this narrow skylight at the back that would wash the wall instead. I think it could be refined and looked at some more, but the intention of these projects is that I do them. I have a concept, I have an idea, and I test it out, and then, but I don't want to dwell on it too much, because I want to test it, learn from it, and then move on. But I don't want to, because it's not like a real project. It's not a commission. I don't need to solve it, and so I just need to learn from it. I need to learn enough to take my experience into the next project, but I don't need to like spend days and weeks and months solving the problem. And so that's why I try to do these fairly fast and not dwell on them too much. And so again, you get this nice double height space where on one hand I really like the softness of the light that comes in here. on the other hand, it still seems a bit unbalanced in light and shadow. And so, yeah, I'm still not convinced on it, but it was an interesting thought experiment, and I think it works better in diagram than in the rendering engine, and so I'm not sure how it would feel with physical models. And then the master bedroom, some more windows and the deck to the outside, and that's the last shot. So not entirely happy with the light, but or the concept, but like happy with having thought up a concept and then tested it out and seeing how it goes. I think the interior volume as this like vertical space worked out really well. I think the compactness of it is fairly successful. I think it still feels large inside, but not overly large. And I like that because it's also not too small. So I think it is a good, comfortable size. But I think in this case, I think I need to improve my architecture. I think I need to really hone in on the concept and really spend more time with the massing and the form and the lighting, and not worry about the materials or the rendering as much. I mean, I didn't really put much time into the rendering, and a lot of Japanese architecture is based on atmosphere, which comes both from lighting, but also a big part of it is also the materials and the texture of the materials. And so that's kind of why I generally emphasize the materials. But I think the concern for materials, and especially the concern for building envelope, and the technicalities of architecture construction are really distracting me from improving my lighting design. And so that's kind of for the next project.